Welcome to the IoT podcast. I'm your host, Tom White. Today, I am joined by Joel Hermanns. Joel is the co-founder and CIO at gridX. gridX is really working towards revolutionising the energy sector. Based in Germany, they are really fueling the energy transformation by building a new digital infrastructure for energy transition and providing technology for companies to build new products, applications or services to create future sustainable businesses. Joel, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Yeah, awesome to be here. I'm also very happy.
Good. Well, we're happy you're here as well. Joel, maybe just to kick off then, could you discuss a little bit about why yourself and the co-founder created gridX? What was the thought process behind this? Because you guys have been going for about 5 years now, is that right?
Yeah, that's true. We started roughly in early 2016, so quite a while ago. I think my part of it is kind of funny in terms of I don't really have a background in energy. Before that, never really been in that industry, and it was more or less by meeting Andy and David, quite visionary guys who came up with the idea of a business. On a famous Ecuador trip and wanted to start a business. And at that time, I was looking for some new challenges, and that's how I got into that whole startup thing, you know.
Wow! So it all started from a trip in Ecuador, right? So people traveled, go to find themselves, and end up starting a business.
Yeah, kind of. From the story I know, they kind of came up with that during a trip, like kind of finding themselves probably at some point and had this idea, and then they were looking for someone to join them with a bit of an expertise in the technology software side of things. And I was somehow lucky to be at the right place at that time. Yeah. And decided to join, you know.
Good. I mean, often these things happen like that, right? You know, it's right place, right time.
Totally.
Indeed. The planets align, right? So that was 5 years ago, and obviously grown significantly since then. Company is around 40-50 people at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And planning to grow even further this year. So looking for plenty of new people, growing fast. So that's an exciting time, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's nice problems to have, right?
Indeed.
Especially at the moment with everything going on in the world. So, good on you and well done to your co-founders for getting into this position. It's not easy starting a business, and certainly the first couple of years are often the hardest before you find your feet and actually know who you are and what you're doing. We congratulate you. Joel, I know some of our listeners obviously are going to be fairly interested in what you're developing. I understand you have a platform. Is it called the Zenon Platform? Is that right? That you're developing?
Exactly.
Could you talk a little bit about the Zenon Platform and how it's leading the march towards carbon neutral energy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you roughly described it in the introduction. So what we're building, kind of the backbone for new kinds of products companies want to build in the energy domain. So the whole energy space is moving into more digital, highly connected space right now. And I think what we experienced is that we are really good at building technology to help customers go into that space, because it requires a lot of knowledge in different domains. And so the platform we have is kind of exactly this. So it's a set of software, hardware things, kind of services, components that help people really build this kind of products. And each of those solves a specific problem they will face along the way, and helps them to get started even faster. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And how long have you been developing Zenon for?
Well, I guess it's in the end, it's the result of everything we've done in the past 5 years, I would say. Usually, as in a startup, probably always you kind of shift a bit the business model along the way, and that's what we have done, and at some point recognize, okay, what's the real value we have created here. But in the end, it's really all the learnings, the experience we have made, trying to launch kind of our own product in the energy domain, and then knowing and learning, okay, what companies really face in terms of problems, what's kind of the things that can help them, and that's what ended up being kind of the platform we have now.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. And one of the things that I hear a lot when I'm looking at gridX is the term smart districts. So a lot of people know up the term smart cities, etc. Could you just explain the term smart districts and what are the functional systems involved in creating a smart district?
Yeah, sure. So from the perspective of us, what we are looking into is always like the scope of energy in such systems. I guess like smart cities involve way more kind of parts, but a smart district in terms of what we are working on in different projects and research and others is about a set of buildings essentially that are equipped with renewable energies, like a PV system you could have big batteries. And then you want to actually, in a very smart and efficient way, ensure all these buildings get the energy they need and are more or less maybe independent from a grid, or can be you just use the energy available in the best possible way. And I think like the parts involved, first of all, like you have a set of buildings. Usually there are a couple of different systems in the electricity or heating domain, and then you have a couple of systems to interconnect them to really understand, okay, what's like the current view, a way you can optimize, etc.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, carbon emissions is obviously a huge issue, isn't it? And there's a lot of companies looking to go carbon neutral by a certain period of time. Hence why we're seeing a massive growth in electronic vehicles, automotive, from not just autonomous driving, but EV based as such. Could you talk a little bit about dynamic charging and how that's supporting this whole EV movement as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, dynamic charging is also one of the biggest drivers of our platform, of our customer base in the past year. I think, as you say, we see a rise of numbers of EVs, and the big issue is usually in how to charge those EVs. So if you end up having maybe in front of an office building several charging stations, and you need to kind of like charge, I don't know, you have 10 charging stations, and you would need to power all of them with 100% of the possible load, you would quickly end up having a problem at the grid connection point, because usually in all the parts of the grid, not all parts are have enough capacity to serve that peak power. And so what you end up, also you have maybe like a building that has some dynamic in the consumption, and you would end up at some point of the day, maybe, either leading to a blackout if you charge your car, or not being able to charge your car at all. And there are basically two solutions to kind of avoid going for blackout. You could then either limit all those charging stations to maybe like 10% or so, but then you would end up increasing the time to charge a car by 10, basically, which is often not really what you want, right? So the other one would be to invest heavily into the grid and increase the capacity available, but this is extremely expensive. And I think as we grow and have more EVs out there, I mean, this investment will like skyrocket everywhere, because you need all this infrastructure. And actually, if you look at all the consumption, maybe of the buildings, the available capacity, and actually how much time you have maybe to charge a car, it's more of like an optimization problem, maybe, because you actually could distribute the load you have available across a specific time, maybe incorporating some kind of priorities or some strategies you want, depending on which car to charge faster. And you don't need to change anything about the infrastructure, because the load you have available is totally fine to you. And that's exactly what we are doing with dynamic charging. We are basically taking the device we have, the gridbox, as a local gateway on the side. We are talking to all the different charging stations. We're talking to a meter that gives us granular data about what's currently being consumed, and then we can dynamically adjust what each individual car is charging. And as a result, you have an order of magnitude less investment cost compared to changing the infrastructure. And in a lot of cases, that's totally fine to go this way, because you do not end up having the need for such high power at that place.
Yeah. I mean, it's often the critical factor in all of this is the infrastructure behind charging, the optimization of charging. And I've said it before on previous podcasts and in conversations with EV businesses, that the car tech, if we take the automobile industry, for instance, is so advanced at the moment. Certainly from where I am sitting right now in the UK, if you take a Porsche Taycan, you cannot charge that as quickly as it can receive the power with the infrastructure that we currently have at the moment. And it's kind of like a race between both parties from the product that's out there and the infrastructure. So it's really nice to hear about concepts and things that businesses like yours are doing to improve that, because I think for me as an individual, I'm not sure if I would ever buy a fossil fuel car again, right?
Yeah, sure.
I've had a car for 2 years, a petrol car. Will I go and buy another petrol car? I'm not so sure, Joel. No.
True.
And I think if I'm going to take that step, and if the people on the street and for all our listeners and people maybe not be involved in this industry, then they need to be comforted in the sense that they can pull up to a fuel station in the same manner and be able to charge their cars without having to seek out and find fast chargers, and for it to be done on a good setup and a good system. In fact, you may know Carl Schwab from the World Economic Forum. He published a book on Industry 4.0, and he said many years ago that there will always be a race between the product and service the private industry are delivering, and how the cities can keep up with this, and how the connected cities and certainly the districts, the term that you're using within gridX, can keep pace with products that are coming out. But it'll be interesting to see what unfolds, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point, as you mentioned. Like, there's always a back and forth probably between the demand we have for something like this, and then how we can actually help all those problems, and kind of it might feel here and there like a workaround to avoid to find the right solution, but I think it works pretty fine. We're seeing a lot of people actually coming up with the problem, and a lot of people also don't thinking about it right now because they are so used to how it works and so used to how the whole electricity also works, and not really thinking about what like an EV might change there, and how it's different from all the other consumers you have in the house. And I think that's like an interesting space to develop, and a big challenge also in the future as we see the rise of EVs there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, EVs aside, obviously all areas of sustainable living needs to be addressed sooner rather than later, to benefit the community, the future of the planet, and so on. Without revealing too much of gridX's secret sauce, and I know people haven't signed confidentiality agreements, can you talk a little bit, or just at a high level, about some things that you may be doing and things that you're trying to produce for the future, and ideas that you may be having? Could that be really interesting for myself and for the listeners to understand?
Yeah, sure. I will try. That's a good question. I think it's basically what we just said. Like, there are some parts where we see solutions growing, like in the EV space or in the district space, which are sort of isolated problems often and isolated solutions. And I think what we will see over time, as you said, like it needs to address all areas. So we will see a lot of interconnected things that kind of like work together and solve it in a broad scale, because like our energy system is not in that isolated spaces working only on its own, but it's like a bigger system. And probably what we are working in is just like to address kind of all parts of it and to make it possible really to build kind of new ideas and build new products on top of it. And yeah, I think a big belief what we have is that just giving people access to sort of the technology to do so will just be a good step, maybe the most important step to kind of increase the innovation in that space. Yeah, because like the energy market is so complex. I think a lot of ideas will probably never make it because like the barrier is so extremely high, right? And so we need to make this probably easier to benefit from all those brilliant ideas someone might have. And I think we experienced some of this on our own, and we're now working to make this easier and working to make all these ideas people have just like a real possibility. And and really benefiting like the society, the community, everyone from it.
Yeah, and I think it's fantastic, right? Because ever more so these days, corporate social responsibility of businesses to do something that will have a positive effect on the world is a lot more paramount. You know, there's lots of concepts and there's lots of focus today on CSR, diversity and inclusion, but overall for me, it's about tech for good, right?
Yeah,
trying to create something that is going to actually help. Of course, you're a private business. You know, you want to earn profit. You want to grow as businesses do, but it's doing it in a really wholesome way, and that's why I'm always inspired when speaking to people like yourself, because there's a real feel good factor with what you're creating and what you're working towards, and I'm sure that must be the same for you and people within your business, that you are working towards doing something good in essence.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, probably that was kind of the thing that got me really curious about the idea, got me really curious to start in that domain, because it felt like you could actually use your skills you have and put them to some good cause, you know, like it kind of has a purpose to actually do this. Sometimes it doesn't feel like this for sure. There are always the tough parts about it, but like overall, you're looking into something. You're looking into problems that that kind of help society to move forward, yeah, and to move to like a future like this. And at some point, probably we're looking back and we'll be happy to tell friends and kids and whoever is there what we did. And yeah, I guess that will be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joel, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you're a busy guy and taking the time out to chat with us today, but I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure our listeners will as well. But it seems everything's going in a positive step for gridX, for you, and for what your company is producing. So, you know, good on you, and we wish you well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation. Hope your listeners are going to enjoy it.
Thank you, Joel.